Hello, hello, hello. Oh, load network. Okay, there we go. We're on. All right. Hi. All right, we're just getting set up. Let me share this to my page. I still don't even know how to do that, do I? Hold on a second. Let's see. Viewers. Nope, that's not it. Let's see. Add. Hello, hello. Come on in. We're just figuring out how to share this to my personal page so that people can see it. Let's see. Hello, hello, hello. I don't know how to share this to my personal page. Let's see. I'm going to begin in just a few seconds. Just trying to, like I said, get this onto my personal page. Well, whatever. I'll have to share it there later. Hopefully people find it. Jeff, will you share it to my personal and tag it? Just hit the share button on the right under the video. Yeah, oh, left. Bottom left, right, whatever. And share it to, just tag me. Yeah, and see if it'll go to my wall that way. I don't know how to do it otherwise. Can you guys let me know that, oh, you sent it to my messenger. I'm trying to put it on my wall. All right, hold on, he's handing me the phone. Let's see, right post. Watch party, copy link. Yeah, here we go, copy link. And share. Give me just a second, folks. I appreciate your patience. I know I got a lot of people that were interested in watching this. Here we go. All right, I am sharing it to my wall, or sharing it via Jeff onto my wall. Paste. Just a second, she's live now. Okay. Alrighty. Here you go, honey. All right, so this is gonna be the format for the show, the channeling, the video. I'm gonna answer some of the questions that I already got a couple days ago. So I'm gonna answer some of these because it's so funny, you know. When I got all these questions, I immediately started hearing all the answers because that's how it comes. Jesus immediately just answers anything if you listen. So it was funny. I was kind of joking with Jesus that I should have just gone live, and he was like, "Yeah, you should." I'm like, I'm trying, baby. So I'm going to answer some of the pre-submitted questions, and then I'm going to talk about how I found Jesus and our relationship and some of our stories, because I know I have a lot of friends who say that they feel that he's around, but they feel like they can't connect. And Jesus keeps telling me the disconnect is that people really don't know the true him. They are confused by the religious version of him, or I don't know. There's so much misinformation out there that people might think he's judgmental, or he doesn't really like you, or he's mad at you. And none of those things are true. So you have to, and the laws with Jesus, with working with him, is you have to come to him. I mean, the whole world needs to have a come to Jesus. He doesn't trespass. He honors free will. So you have to come to him and initiate the conversations, and then you will hear back and forth. So, and I'll explain more of that in a little bit. But let me go into the questions. Oh, and then the final part, I will answer some live questions. So my husband's watching the live feed. He's going to jot down some questions, and hopefully it doesn't get too crazy. I'll try to answer as many as I can. So, alrighty. And then of course, I got my little Jesus doll, because the Catholic in me is scared to death he'll abandon me in my hour of need. So thanks, Catholicism. I appreciate that. And then to go in a little bit more of that, you know, Catholicism, his body is at the altar, right? A life-size dead version of him, capsulated in his hour of abandonment, where he literally said, "God, why hast thou abandoned me?" Which he didn't really feel that way, but in the moment it sucked. You know, can we all agree on that? So Catholicism is, for me, it was a big separation of my relationship with Jesus. And like I said, I'll get more into that when I tell my personal stories, because he used to be my imaginary friend when I was very little. And then I started going to Catholic school and going to really old Catholic churches and seeing his dead body everywhere. And it really upset me to know that that was him, because he was my best friend. Anyway, all right, so some of the first questions that I got is, one of the first ones I got is, how important is this life cycle in comparison with others? And Jesus is here. He was already telling me the answers to this question. He was saying that they build upon each other, that all of our incarnations are important, and they all build on top of each other. So the incarnations that we had prior to, that maybe we didn't have any kind of awakening, or we were suppressed for having our gifts, or oppressed for having our gifts, or murdered for knowing truth or divinity or sharing that, or going against social norms or government norms or laws. So we have all those rough past lives that all build onto this life. So this life, a lot of people are having spiritual awakenings, like myself. A lot of people are having spiritual awakenings and opening up to gifts, and they're able to hear voices or see things or know things that they did not know. Answers, brilliant ideas, complex solutions to really big issues in our world. So those are all parts of the huge awakening. So the veil is getting much, much, much thinner. So this part of our life it's equally important to others, but since we're in this life right now, it's the utmost important, because the present, the now is the most important. The past lives may help you understand what you've already accomplished. It's good to remember, if you can, past lives, so that you know what you've already accomplished, some parts of you, and most of those are in soul shards. So, and that can get really, really deep really quickly on if you were truly a particular person, or if you just have a huge chunk of their Akashic record with you for reference. So they can be like a spirit guide, or it could be a life that you had incarnated in. It's all just energy that's brought with you in your arsenal, in your toolbox for this time, so that you have more success with this incarnation in accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish, which is to awaken and work with divinity, right? That's the natural relationship we should have had on this planet to begin with. And if we have time, I'll get into the book of Genesis and what Jesus and God have kind of explained to me about that too, or I'll just do another live on that if we run out of time. And then the next question, a friend of mine asked, do we go to the light or not go to the light? And she was saying there were some theories that you shouldn't go to the light, that it's a trick, and that if you do go to the light, it's instant reincarnation. So what Jesus explained to me about this particular thing, he said the instant reincarnation really only happens when we die with regrets, he says. When we die with excruciating regrets and don't accomplish what our desire is in our heart. So those are like the blueprints to what you should be doing in life, your desires and what calls to you. And if you're too afraid to do it and you die with regrets, you'll just sign up to come back again. Because whatever held you from accomplishing your mission was usually a disconnect with God. Because when you have a good relationship with source, creator, divinity, whatever you want to call God, whatever you want to call that God power, the force, whatever it is, if you have the confidence to use it, your life is very different. You have the courage to do things, and you can be fearless, and that you can, it's not just you figuring things out. So people who tend to not have a good relationship beyond themselves, or they think that only they are responsible for creating what has been put inside their heart, they may not ever accomplish it, and then they'll die with regrets. And regrets is basically, sign me up again, I didn't do it. So if you want to avoid that, do what you're being called to do. Die with no regrets. That's the best way to go. And that's how you really level up. So when my dad passed, my mom is very open to all of this. So my dad was Catholic and my mom was spiritually awake. And it was very interesting dynamics. And then when my dad passed away, he thought there was nothing there. He thought my mom was Looney Tunes. He would he would always make fun of her and just tell her she had rose-colored glasses on. It was just mocking her, and he just really didn't listen. But it sunk in subliminally because he's come to both me and my brother, my older brother, and has told us all about the other side. And one of the first things he said was, apologize to your mother. She knows way more. What did he say exactly? He said, she knows what she's talking about, or something. She's only scratched the surface, though, but your mother was right. I think that's what one of the first things he said was, your mother was right, and your sister's really good at this. And I was like, oh, you think? So, and then he started coming to me in dreams. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to going to the light versus not going to the light. So Jesus told me, go to the light. They will sort you appropriately. Go to the light. And the reason it's good to know Jesus is that he is like a familiar face, a guide to the other side. Because when you cross over, there is so much there that if your human egoic version of you is programmed to not believe in any of it, you'll go hang out in like purgatory because you can't comprehend the playground that is available to you through the veil and all the other worlds and all the other dimensions and the levels and stuff that you can continue going to, or reincarnate here if you're not prepared for that, or keep going forward. So my dad told me that he was offered that he could either reincarnate and try again, that he would be guaranteed to awaken at this time and that things would be different. Or he could work with us through the veil, since my brother, my mother, and I, a majority of the family, my little brother's getting there, can see him, hear him, feel him. My mom gets, flickers of lights and signs all the time from her loved ones and from my father. Like I said, my brother used to hear him audibly and then in his head all the time for, I'd say, a year or two after he died, and then he kind of cut that out. It was just so painful. He just missed him so much. And then my dad used to come to me in dreams, and the night that he passed away, I went into his waiting room in heaven, and I've talked to a bunch of people who've had near-death experiences, and they talk about this one room. It's a white room with what I saw was holographic walls. So let me just explain what I popped into. So I was sleeping and I pop into this lucid dream, and if you've ever had a lucid dream, they're very different from your regular dreams. Regular dreams usually make zero sense. And then dreams where you're connecting with someone, they usually make a lot of sense and have a lot of clarity and a lot of message and a lot of meaning. So I popped into this room, and there's a big oval table in this room. And I'd say the room was as big as my kitchen and my living room. So, 30 feet by 15 feet, whatever this is. I don't know math. I was an English major. But the room was really, really big, and it had what I saw were holographic walls, and they were projecting. It was the beach. It was a deserted beach and very peaceful, just, lapping waves, and the big palm tree. If you ever remember, like the Windows 95 wallpaper or some Windows application wallpaper with the palm tree that's just like, hanging real low and in the water, just really, really peaceful. And then you could hear the sounds of the ocean. So there were a bunch of people sitting around the table, and I noticed my dad was one of them. He was sitting 2 or 3 people over from me. I saw him, and he had passed away from glioblastoma brain cancer. So when he passed, he had had a grand mal seizure 18 months prior to that, I think, and was paralyzed, half his body. He was bedridden for a very long time. It was awful for him, but he needed to experience that also. We've had the conversations about all that. But so he didn't have, he'd also had a misshapen head from the brain surgeries that he had. So when I saw him in the waiting room, he didn't have any of that anymore. It was such a relief to see that he had his full smile. He didn't have the facial paralysis. He didn't have the misshapen skull anymore. He just looked very similar to the age that he passed, but healed and whole and fine and not in pain and not suffering anymore. And then there were a ton of people standing in the same room too, that from what I understood, those people passed really suddenly. They didn't know where they were. They were talking to each other or trying to talk to each other and get answers. They were, from what I could tell, they had all just passed really quickly. And then the people at the table seemed to know that they were passing already, so they were more relaxed and just kind of going with the flow. So I look over, and I'm so glad that Jesus told me to wear waterproof mascara today, because I will likely cry. I've been crying all morning. So I looked over and saw my dad, and he saw me, and he was still really weak, but he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." And I said, "I miss you so much." And I just lost it. I just started crying. And he said, "I love you so much." And I woke up from the dream because the minute you go into the grief and sadness, you can't connect anymore because it's such a level that they don't experience anymore. You know, all that grief and pain and suffering is only here on earth. Thanks for the heads up on the waterproof mascara, Jesus. Whew. So that is the topic of whether or not you should go to the light. Go to the light. Jesus says they'll sort you appropriately because you can get really, really lost if you deny the light. You can wander aimlessly, which you really don't want to do either, you know, because you won't leave the earth realm, and then you'll end up just being a spirit that's kind of stuck here, not knowing what to do. You've got to look for the light. You've got to cross over. And like I said, Jesus is just a really great person to look for when you cross over. But, you know, the Christian terminology, if you deny me in front of the Father, I'll deny you. It's true, but that's not what he means. He means if you don't want anything to do with me, I will respect that and leave you to whatever. You have free will. So it's important to me anyway, and he's also explained to me, listen, I have no agenda. I literally died for you guys freely. I tried to teach you guys peace, love, and how to manifest the kingdom here on earth, that peace is within, the temple's within, everything's within. He has no agenda, whereas working with other deities or other entities, unless they're truly ascended masters like Buddha, Dalai Lama, blah, blah, people who really sacrifice their lives for us 100%, you really should be tuning into them. Just give your trust to them. And I was very resistant when Jesus first showed up. I thought he was barking up the wrong tree, wanted nothing to do with Christianity. I was very triggered by Jesus. And then I had forgotten that he was my imaginary friend too. So then let me see if I can answer some other questions. How is it decided which realm a soul belongs in? Okay, so when you cross over based on your programming, your beliefs, which are basically the same thing, and then your vibrational frequency that you're vibrating at will determine what dimension you can access that you're ready for once you cross over. So like I said, if you have programming that you're not expecting anything on the other side, and then all of a sudden your brain is blown, you're gonna need to be in like a processing, debriefing area, energetically, soul-wise, before you can really move on or do anything or decide anything. This was one of the things my dad has actually thanked my mom through me repeatedly, that he subconsciously heard all of the woo-woo stuff that my mom had read since the 80s. The early 80s, she's been reading all of the Doreen Virtue books and all sorts of stuff. I mean, the woman's read like 1,000 books on spirituality. So he was saying the reason that he was given the opportunity to not have to just reincarnate, because based on his Catholic beliefs, he would have had to just reincarnate because it wasn't true. It wasn't accurate. That the reason he's able to be in the realm that he is, he shows me he's some sort of, I don't know, Star Trek realm or Federal Galactic or something. He's on some ship somewhere. Doing something cool. He shows me he's got a badge and he's ranked up high and he's very proud of himself. But he says the only reason he was able to access that is because of my mom's subliminal teachings of what's really on the other side, or what possibilities there are other than what we're taught through just organized religion. So I hope that answers that question. I'll do that at the end, the live questions at the end. Let's see, as his parables get more and more mysterious, is he moving beyond the physical in understanding? Yes, absolutely. And that's how it seemed for me. I feel a growing frustration with man's obtuseness and focus on the physical and tangible. Girl, so does he. The thing with the whole Bible the thing with the Bible is the parables should be logical for any situation. The Bible's not black and white. You're supposed to use your logic and your own discernment based on the time that you're in also. So certain phrases were then given examples by their local laws and their local times, which we no longer adhere to, or we don't participate in most of those laws. We eat pork, we eat seafood. We've learned that they are not going to kill us if you cook them properly, where at the time, those were great warnings because they were really bad for you. They're also very high in cholesterol, so just beware. The things in the Bible, Like the 10 Commandments, that's just to show that you're out of alignment with your God self. Because if you're in alignment with the Christ consciousness and your God self, your highest self, you're naturally not doing those 10 things. If you're doing those 10 things, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself, is all that it's saying. If you're doing those things, you need to really look at why you're doing them, assess them. So like the divorce thing, obviously God's not pro-divorce, but he also gets that we make mistakes and he forgives that and we forgive it. You know, we're supposed to be incarnations of him experiencing a human existence. Collecting data as what it's like to be Molly, what it's like to be you, what it's like to be, you know, droplets of God as these little human aspects, and then reporting back to God what we're experiencing here, what needs to be changed, what needs help with, and those are supposed to be your prayers of, I've noticed this, please help me fix this. The reason we're here is to bring light to the dark, you know, so bad things are still happening. God lets those bad things happen because we're doing it, not God. We're manifesting these things ourselves, and we will figure it out ourselves too. So I know I got a lot of questions also on what does Jesus think about abortion and stuff like that. I mean, come on, nobody wants to murder babies on either side. However, you need to, and this is what Jesus was telling me, you need to look through the lens of love at every situation. And, you know, even the abortion situation too. Everything needs to be looked at through the eyes of love. And I really like when he was explaining that to me, because I get that. If you can look at any situation with non-judgment and just through the lens of love, we will find the solutions. And he's telling me these things we'll figure them out, and very soon. And when things come to a head like they are now, that's when they get a lot of love poured into them. That's when they have the opportunity to be resolved. Definitely, you know, and not have to keep coming back to this as an issue that's not being solved at the root. And the root is people don't want the kids because they don't have the money. They don't have the health care. They don't want them, period. They've, you know, hooked up with someone and don't want to have a baby. And while God wanted to give you that gift, however you believe it, you are allowed to reject it. Again, free will here, but have a valid reason within you so that you are not pained to death with resentment, regret of yourself. If you can't forgive yourself, then, you know, you're going to have some wonky programming. So that's as far as I want to get into politics and abortions and stuff like that, because, I mean, think logically. Jesus is love. God is love. No one wants anything murdered, killed, or brought into a world that doesn't want it either. So think about it logically, because again, that's what we're supposed to be doing here, is thinking logically with our hearts, with our love spaces, and then putting it out into the world. So I know I get people asking me, why does God allow suffering? God allows suffering so that we'll choose to not suffer anymore. We live in a world of dualities and polars. So if you experience one and then you know the other exists, if this one feels like shit, you'll gravitate to this one. But if you don't know this exists, you won't appreciate this. So this is just a huge learning field for us to grow spiritually, organically, our soul in this wonky environment. So let me see if I can answer some more of these little questions. And all right, so my friend asked, why are reapers so freaking creepy? Reapers are, it depends on your state of mind. Again, I've had this conversation with a girlfriend of mine who channels Archangel Azrael, who is the angel of death. And the reapers are around those with the lower vibrationals. And they're trying to scare you out of that vibration. Same thing that Lucy's kind of doing, Lucifer. He's trying to scare you out of being the POS that you might be gravitating towards. And he's offering you to do horrible things that if you choose to do them, that was in you to begin with. He's just trying to speed up the process to get you out of here, manifest whatever horribleness you're going to do and leave, or run to God. That's been what I have found the purpose of Lucy is. He's going to test you ruthlessly and relentlessly to prove that you're not worthy of God, which we all are. We all are. Jesus says, stop with that right now. The whole, I am not worthy. Don't say those words. If you've ever seen depictions of Jesus or read in the Bibles and stuff like that, parts of the Bible, when people would fall to their knees saying, I'm not worthy of Jesus, and he would immediately lift them up to eye level and tell them to rise. Don't do that, rise. You need to be equal. He wants us to be equal to him. He wants us to aspire to be like the Christ consciousness. So now this is where the problem comes in of people who's like, I can't find him. I can't relate to him. I hear you. I felt the exact same way. I couldn't relate to that either. I am not perfect. I was horribly flawed. I still am. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But the problem is, people think he's overly pious, that they've misconstrued what righteousness means. So Jesus and God source were telling me the true definition of righteousness is standing firm in your truth through unconditional love. So you can't be in your truth and then judgmental. That is not the proper righteousness. That is egoic righteousness, which is the wrong kind of righteousness. Standing in your truth, but with unconditional love, is true righteousness. And that's the following of Jesus. So then when he showed up, all right, so I'm going to start telling some of the stories of when he showed up. Oh my God, I'm sweating so bad because I get so warm when I channel. I know my channeling friends out there are the same thing. Okay, so before Jesus showed up, in 2014, I had a PTSD flashback of some shit I went through as a kid, sexually molested as a kid. And the whole room changed. I had a full-on flashback in about September 2014, before I knew about a spiritual awakening. It got really rocky at that point. I had just full-blown nervous breakdown. But then I started finding people that were telling me, like my mom, she was like, have you heard about a dark night of the soul, spiritual awakening? And I was like, oh my God, like I need real help. Give me pills, give me drugs, give me antidepressants, give me anything to relax me, knock me out, sleep, And I met these workers in California, these health workers, mental health workers, and they kept telling me, you need to learn to meditate. And I remember I wanted to strangle them. I was like, you need to sedate me. And they were like, no, you need to learn to meditate. And I did. And they would give me the medicines, and then I would like freaking lactate. I haven't had a kid in years as a baby, to be able to be doing that. And I remember waking up, I was like, I don't want the side effects of pills. I don't like them anymore. So I got an app, I started meditating. And then I found some groups that were talking about spiritual awakening, and they felt a lot better than the void of you're having a nervous breakdown. So I didn't know how to fix that. But if I'm having a spiritual awakening, I can humble myself and find God if that's going to cure it, because it was awful. My company had fallen apart due to a hard drive crashing. We lost... our whole business, we lost a ton of data. It was a huge shift in the technological phase of 2010, 2012-ish era of when technology just kept changing, the data kept changing. And you know what? It disrupted my life. I thought it was the end of the world. It really, really sucked. But God makes you change your path however he has to make it get done. And I was, I wasn't meant to be in the wedding industry the rest of my life, quite honestly. And I appreciate everything that I learned as being an entrepreneur. Thank you, sweetheart. My husband's getting me water. I appreciate everything that I learned as an entrepreneur and a woman-owned business, and someone who just went at it really aggressively, and I appreciate all of that knowledge now. And then on top of it, we were in cinematography, and so we know, cameras, directing, and video, which thankfully it all works into what I'm doing now. So God knows what he's doing. Just follow it. If you're in a void right now, just follow God. Try to find God, find Jesus. Again, you got to find Jesus. So let me start telling you some funny stories, because again, so many people have problems finding Jesus because they think he's not funny. They think he's not someone you can relate to. I mean, this is someone who people dropped whatever they were doing and followed him. So that has got to be some charismatic energy, right? And I'm sure he had a great sense of humor, because who would follow someone 13, 20, 40 people? I mean, he had a ton of followers. He just had some disciples that he thought could maybe carry on his messages, that they were paying close enough attention and hanging out with him long enough, especially Mary, whom he loved, by the way. I know I've got some questions on Mary Magdalene. Yes. Okay, this is going to probably piss off a lot of people, but he shows me, and she shows me, that part of him coming back was for her. He came back to fulfill prophecies, to blow all our minds, to mess with people. I was reading some Bible passages last night because something popped up on my phone. And it was like, oh, Luke something or other. And I was like, all right, why? If it's popping up on my phone, I probably need to read it. And it was talking about right after the resurrection, how he was ghosting people, popping up and saying, hey, why are you so sad? Da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, you haven't heard about Jesus. And he's like, you have so little faith. Didn't he say he was going to rise again? Oh, no, we don't believe that. Oh, well, that's too bad. And then he went and had a fish sandwich with some lady and then ghosted her when she turned around. I mean, these are all things in the Bible that he did come back. And this is my problem with organized religion and Catholicism specifically, is we zone in only on the crucifixion and the death and not the miracles, which Jesus clearly said we possess and we can do far greater than he ever did. And yet we don't take the time to learn it. We don't take the time to teach it. The religion parts really don't get into it. The only church that I have found that does, correct me if I'm wrong if there's other ones, but Unity seems to be the only one that is teaching law of attraction, quantum energies, miracles, Reiki, frequency attunements, and all those things. So I really enjoy that church because I went to a lot of churches. One of the funny stories is I went on a wild goose chase to a church with Jesus, and he was showing me that how clearly he was not there. They were condemning the gays right after the Pulse shooting. Do you remember the Pulse shooting? It was in Orlando. I live in Orlando, in case anyone doesn't know. The Pulse shooting happened, and I was just wanting community. I wanted to find other people who were saying that they could hear Jesus and see him or experience him, because I felt so alone knowing he's with me. He's right next to me. So I keep getting ahead of myself because this is so much fun. But let me get to that in just a minute because I'm going to try to tell it chronologically. So I had that nervous breakdown. Towards the end of the nervous breakdown, I'd say 2015, my mom won this intense Reiki healing with this like world-renowned, Christ-based, Jesus-loving pastor guy who also does Reiki all over the world. And she magically won his $300, $400, $500 ticket. I think she spent like, $20, $40, $60 or something. It was a bid. And then she ended up sitting next to him at the dinner. So she kept telling me, I feel like this is meant to be. I feel like this is meant to be. And me at that time, I was on antidepressants and volatile. I wanted nothing to do with the woo-woo stuff all that much. I really was mad at God for all the stuff I went through and whatever, my misprogramming. So my mom ended up winning that. I went down to go visit her, and I went and did the Reiki healing, and it was through Christ. So it was calling to Christ and me accepting Christ and laying on a table, and he did the whole Reiki of all the chakras and healing the traumas and stuff that I went through in my life that are causing a lot of the negative attachments within me, making me want to be suicidal and hate myself and volatile and just not wanting to live and all these things. And 3 days after that healing, I had a healing crisis and tried to kill myself. I tried to kill myself. I took all of the drugs I could find, which I had a ton of morphine from a hip replacement and a knee surgery. I had Dilaudid. I had hardcore stuff, and I didn't even yawn. Don't go do this yourself, please. This was my circumstance. So, I mean, maybe I died in some freaking dimension or in some timeline, but nothing happened then. But I went to the hospital, and I never lost consciousness or anything like that. And I got back home, and I'd say within 3 or 4 days after leaving, because I had to go to a psych ward. When you try to kill yourself, you go there for a couple of days, and it doesn't help. It's so sad there. Everyone else is sad there too. I didn't feel like I was getting much help, so they let me leave, and they gave me some new pills, and they gave me some hardcore stuff. And Archangel Michael showed up. Okay, so this is where the beings actually started showing up. So I'm laying in bed one day, and I can feel air fluttering behind me, and I can see visions in my head. Like immediately the thoughts that came into my head were angels. I could feel angel wings fluttering behind me. They were being behind me, and what they've told me is they will stay behind you until you allow them to come forward, because they respect your free will too if they're of the light. If they're not, they don't respect your free will. They're trespassers. But if they do respect your free will, then you will ask them to come forward and show themselves. They will respectfully stay back here because they don't want to freak you out. So then Michael finally came forward when I was asking who they were. I saw a flash of Michael in my head, just as random thoughts that came in, and I was like, okay, so maybe it's Archangel Michael that's around. So then I felt him come around to the front of me. Again, I couldn't see like a full apparition. This is all like in my mind's eye, which is your imagination, your imaging, what your projection is. So these thoughts and random images were coming in. So he came around and told me to do not take the new drugs. Do not take them. Just detox off the antidepressants that you were taking for years on horribly high doses of crazy antidepressants for like 20 years. So he was like, don't get on anything new. And I was like, okay, Archangel Michael just told me not to have these pills anymore. And I remember telling my husband, he was like, you're fucking crazy. But he said it with his eyes, not with his mouth. I just went off of them. And then within a couple of days, the Archangel started giving me ideas for these chakra balancing drinks. I asked for ideas that would help me to make some money for myself because I wasn't working. Through that nervous breakdown, I took a lot of time off, nonstop panic attacks. So I took some time off and Jeff was working full time and I was just working on healing myself and healing the PTSD, residual PTSD stuff. So Archangel Michael gave me recipes for 7 chakra drinks that are all, plants and herb based. And I made them all and they were delicious. And we went to some spiritual center and I debuted them there because they had some sort of thing. And it felt really, really good. And it was really interesting, the concept of the drinks. And then I kind of just put them on the side burner. I thanked them for that and just was kind of letting it go into motion. And I started getting all these other ideas from them too, of TV shows and ways to help myself, empower myself, also teaching people what they were trying to teach. And then one day I was laying in bed, I was having a horrible panic attack, and I was also trying to homeschool my son for the first time at this time too, because he was relentlessly being bullied in school and he just couldn't take it anymore. And even his special ed teacher had called him stupid, and I was like, no, we can't have that. So it was 3rd grade, I was trying to homeschool him at the same time, and Archangel Michael said, go for a walk. And of course, when Archangel Michael says go for a walk or tells me anything, I think I'm crazy, but I go with it. You know what, whatever, I already thought I was crazy. This feels a lot better, this version of crazy. So he was encouraging me to get out of bed, go move your energy, go for a walk. It's a beautiful day, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, because I wanted to feel better. So I told Kyle, I said, Kyle, let's walk over to the park and get some energy out. Let's get out of the house, get our energy going. And he's, okay. So we go for a walk. I'm walking, and out of my corner of my third eye, I see Jesus sitting under a tree. And I walk towards him and I go, where the hell have you been? And he laughed and he said, I have been here the whole time. You turned around. And I said, I don't know what the hell that means, but don't go anywhere. I have like 1,000 questions for you. And he didn't go anywhere. He has never left my side since then. So I know that I invoked him with giving myself to him in that Reiki session. So that is how I personally invoked him. I know people are like, how did he come to you? He won't come to you. You have to come to Jesus. And I did. And then he respected and honored that. And he is faithful to anyone that comes to him. But you got to learn how to work with him too. You can't tune it out when you start seeing him in your third eye or in your thoughts or whatever. You can't just tune it out and say, no, that's not happening, or those are my thoughts. You really need to feel if there's an energy signature behind any of your thoughts. And you should ask, and it will be shown to you. Ask and you shall receive. Ask and it shall be shown, right? So, and this is all the stuff that he's taught me along the way. So we went to the playground, and I remember sitting there and I was like, did I just yell at Jesus? Like, did I just see him? And then but I could still feel him around me. And he was like, I'm waiting for you. And he's like, we'll talk when you get home. And I was like, all right. So I get home and I come into the house and I sit on my bed, and he immediately starts explaining all of the Bible to me. Everything that I'm like, what? WTF my whole life, you know? So he starts explaining what he meant by everything. And I really, truly appreciated that. And then I started trying to explain it to my husband too, because I was fascinated when it all made sense. And that it's all here for our empowerment and guidance and not rules. They're not rules. Some of them are laws just because that's the construct of the earth matrix here. There are laws here. There's laws of gravity, there's law of attraction, there's law of attention, there's law of physics, there's many laws here, but they're not rules to keep you from your free will. Those are two very different things. So you have to use discernment when reading the Bible. Like, I mean, look at parts of Leviticus. Come on, none of that is relevant to today. And then on top of it, to say that mystics are witches and psychics are not the same thing as prophets and preachers. Well, how convenient is that, Mr. Preacher, people who have written this part? So that is the discernment we need to use. The parts that say that are words of God, follow those. But the parts that explain the words of God in their relevant times, whoa, use some new logic here, okay? That's how they explained it when it was personal to them. So use discernment. God gave us the power of discernment, okay? This is really funny. So I'm in my room and Jesus is explaining all the Bible to me, and it was just like a big download of information that I suddenly just knew, and I was like, aha. And then, going back and forth in my head, telepathically communicating with him of, okay, that makes sense, moving along. So I went out into the living room and I was trying to explain all this to my husband, and my husband was trying to put together a speaker system on the sofa, on the TV set. And Jesus goes, isn't it hysterical that you're literally channeling Jesus and your husband can't be bothered with the stereo? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. That's so rude. He's like, no, don't judge. He goes, that's just, be mindful of how it is here. Like, people are going to think you're nuts. Don't stop talking is all I'm getting at. And I was like, all right. And then I sat on the sofa. I said, Jesus, if you're really here, you've got to prove yourself. Like, make the lights flicker or something. And they went completely out. The whole house went completely off and then on. And I was like, okay, you're here. My son saw that. My husband was in the room. And that was such a huge affirmation that he was really there. Okay, so then we go back into my bedroom. I think this might have been the same day. It was a long day. A long day full of learning who Jesus truly is. So I'm in my room and he's telling me who he is. I'm like, I know who you are. I know who you are. But I don't like your followers. There was a bumper sticker I saw years ago. It said, Jesus, protect me from your followers. And oh my God, yes, for reals. God bless them. I know they mean well, but... no stones, please. So I was asking him, like, what are your names? What can I call you? And he goes, because I said, I don't want to call you Jesus. I'm very triggered by it. All I hear is Jesus and condemnation and damnation and hellfire and all the fear stuff that I'm sick of. Sick of. Full to the brim with that. And he goes, what's the funniest name you can think of for me? And I had been raised that you could possibly offend Jesus and God. And that's some of my mom's programming, which we've had this discussion, and she's aware of it too. But I don't mean to throw my mom under the bus here. But I was trying to offend him to see if he'd leave me, to see if he would truly abandon me and just leave me like anyone else I could piss off, because that's the PTSD mental illness. It is not mental illness. It's PTSD programming that you trust no one, really, right? You've gone through something horrific, something like child sexual abuse or something like that with a neighbor. You don't trust most people anymore, right? You try to trigger them and see if they'll leave because fine, less people to have to trust. So he said, what's the funniest name you can think of for me? I said, Frank the Messiah. Oh, I said Frank. And then he bowed and he said, well, call me Frank the Messiah. And I thought that was delightful. I just really thought that was the best answer, and then he was like, I will meet you where you're at. I will meet anyone where they're at. If you call me, I will be here and meet you wherever you are, and I will be whatever you need me to be in the unconditional love vibration, which is all what we need. We're all craving that. We want someone who loves us unconditionally right where we are right now, right? And that's exactly what he was and showed up. So for 3 days, I called him Frank the Messiah and never offended him, never left. And then the charm wore off because he wasn't offended. And then I was just like, all right, you're being a dick. What should I call you? So I said, Jesus, what other names do you have? And he said, I am also known as the One, the Light, the Way. They call me Yeshua, Yahweh. And I said, okay, I like Yeshua. I don't feel any triggers when I say Yeshua. So for 2 years when I worked with him, I called him strictly Yeshua. And, he just explained everything to me. And again, he's so funny. And that's what I needed. I needed less seriousness. And salvation is serious, but salvation sounds so triggering. It's more of guidance. Your salvation, you're saving, when you find Jesus, you are saving yourself from yourself doing it all alone, okay? And Jesus is a shortcut. He is the way, the direct way to God's source energy, right? He was the fullest incarnation of that God source, divine, unconditional love in human form, right? And he knew it since birth and prophesied, and angels showed up, and all of the miracles that were fulfilled to bring in this prophesized person, this prophesized being, right? So he explained all of that to me, and then I'm trying to think of all the stories. So one of the things, I met a neighbor, and they kept trying to recruit me to go to their church, and they kept saying that they spoke in tongues, which Jesus is like, that's the same as channeling, and that they did hands-on healing, and he was like, that's the same as Reiki, and that they had prophets there, and he's like, that's the same as channeling, and I thought I would feel safe there. I thought I would be accepted there. And so I got there to this big evangelist church. And the reason I was into going, they had a beautiful choir music department, and I'm a singer. So Jesus is like, know that you're safe there, but keep your eyes about you so that you will learn where I truly am and see the agendas and the problems that are taking places, that these lost people are not getting the help that they need for the most part. Some people surely are. And not all churches are evil and bad. They're just not evolving, and we need to evolve at this point in time, okay? It's clearly the ascension. It's clearly a rapture going on. There's apocalyptic, signs in the sky, which so funny just popped up on my newsfeed today. 2-3 years ago, 2016, I think it was. Something called me out of my bed, went out to the street and looked up, and there was a cross in the sky. It was the moon and another celestial planet, and a celestial planet here, and a celestial planet here, and another one right below the base. So it formed a cross, and it was stunning. I walked out there, and my mind was blown. I felt like I was in another world with how gorgeous that was as a sign. It was like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning too, and I went out there. And then my husband came out because he noticed I was missing. He woke up and saw that I was not in bed. He came out and he immediately saw it too and was blown away. Well, I sketched it because something called to me that it meant something. So I sketched it, and I found all the celestial bodies were the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So I went to a Unity church to discuss that, and they said that made a lot of sense, that would be ushering in. And then the apocalypse itself, I mean, the Greek the definition of apocalypse is lifting of the veil. That's all that's happening. Our religious interpretation of apocalypse is the end of the world. Book of Revelation, those are all visions that are accumulating all over the world. So it can look catastrophic if you look at it in all one location, but those are all supposed to just be signs of a place marker or where we are in the waiting for the second coming. So it's funny I didn't get any second coming questions. I might have some, on the live feed, but the second coming is through the veil. He says repeatedly, I will come through the clouds. The second coming is whenever you choose to acknowledge him. Whenever you choose to have the relationship with him, you will have your personal second coming. And he is embodying so many people. So many people are being activated with the Christ consciousness. I know somebody said, another question was about if people claiming to be Jesus are really him. And they may feel like they're him. I mean, when you have the Christ consciousness activated, you will be acting a lot like him. So to say that you are the reincarnation of him, you're probably off a little bit, but you have been activated and you are part of the second coming of his energy. So, and it can feel like that. Like I feel very connected to Mary Magdalene. I have my whole life. Whether or not I was her or not, I know that she plays an intricate part of my purpose here, as does Jesus. Obviously, to do this work and we're writing a musical, Jesus Freak, to really show who the real Jesus is to me anyway. He's very funny. He's very enlightened. He's very charismatic. He's non-judgmental. He's loving. And not judgmental, but he'll still point out what's wrong. So I remember one day I was in the house and I was having a panic attack, and Jesus was like, let's go out on the balcony, get out some fresh air, and let's go talk. And there was something dramatic happening, because there's always drama happening all over the world, whether it was a personal drama or just some sort of social media drama or political drama or whatever it is. There was just an infestation of drama going on. And he was like, come sit on the patio with me. So I go and sit on the patio with him. And he looks at me and he goes, "You're a drama queen. You know that, right?" I go, "Jesus, you're calling me out." I go, "What? And I was called out because I am. And then he goes, "I don't mean that as a personal attack, but just be aware of it. Everyone on earth is sucked into the drama, and it is a huge waste of time." And then he was explaining all of, drama versus passion. If you're stuck in drama, you're not chasing your passions, right? And we only have so much time in these bodies here on earth, which we could have a longer time if we really know how to take care of them. But as of right now, our lifespan is anywhere from 40 to 80 years, give or take. That's not a lot of time. So we got to focus away from the negative stuff and go more into the positive. Choose the positive. Just like you have to choose him, you got to choose the positive too if you want to accomplish all the things and not die with regrets, right? Trying to think about this. Okay, let me finish the story going into the church. So I was craving community of finding similar people who were claiming to have relationships with Jesus anywhere near mine that I could validate and feel inclusive and not so alone. Because people would channel Jesus, but he's with me all the time, like 24/7, which I love. Oh my God, I love it. So I went to this church, and you had to take a test of what your gifts are. And my first one said, "You're prophetic." And I was like, sweet, they're going to see I'm prophetic and maybe help me to talk about Jesus. And then at the end of they said I was empathetic and da-da-da-da. And then at the end they said, "Oh, just keep those results for yourself." And I'm like, why? I already know what I am. You need to know what I am if you want me to work in your church. So Jesus was like, "Sign number 1, just so you know, like, just be aware." So I put that away, and then was going into the choir of singing stuff. And then, like I said, this was at the same time the Pulse stuff had just happened. So this is a gay club in Orlando that was just shot up. They think it was a terrorist, a gay attack, or, what, a hate crime, whatever it was. But a ton of beautiful people were just slaughtered. And the church had a big tribute to them. Beautiful writings all over, their names were all over, honoring them. And we went to the service for that on Wednesday. They gave a beautiful service. And my husband was even like, "Oh my God, I think we found a church that isn't all about bashing gays and abortions." Like, I don't want to hear about that. Can we talk about what Jesus actually accomplished here and how we're supposed to do the same thing instead of just talking about the bad stuff and judging it and condemning it? I get that. So we come the next weekend, or we're about to, and the night before we have choir practice. So I come at night, it was like 7:00 at night, I go to choir practice, and we're rehearsing some of the sweet little Jesus Christian songs. They were so cute. And I'm up there and feel Jesus is with me, and suddenly this preacher comes running in, and he goes, "I'm feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit." And Jesus is like, "Yeah, I bet you are." And he goes, "I'm feeling the need to anoint everyone in the room." And Jesus goes, "All right, pay attention. Notice he's not asked for your permission, but you're covered, you're fine. Whatever his agenda is will be blocked from you. Whether good will be come in and bad will be blocked if he's got any kind of agenda." So, which he did, because he basically called me a witch when I told him I talked to Jesus. So there you go. So he comes in, he starts anointing the people, and he comes by and anoints me, and Jesus nudges me and he goes, "Hey, what do you think was in that oil?" I was like, oh my God, that's such a good question, because I was getting into the oils at the time. My friend had got me into the oils through doTERRA, and I was madly in love with frankincense and myrrh and all that good stuff. Rodney, thank you, by the way. And so Jesus is like, "What do you think's in that oil? What do you think they're anointing you with?" Because all the oils serve a purpose. They're medicinal. And I don't know. Frankincense, myrrh, what do you think's in there? Oh my God, the good stuff. Like, what are you giving us? So I asked the girl next to me, and I go, "What is he anointing us with?" And she goes, "Oh, I don't know." And the little bottle was on the pulpit there, and she goes, "Let me go look." So she runs up there and she runs back, and she goes, "It's Estee Lauder face oil." And Jesus goes, "Well, there you go. Can we go now?" And I was like, oh my God. And he was like, "Just keep that in mind." He's like, "No, I want you to go to service this weekend. So sing along and let's go to service this weekend." So he was just like, be aware that they don't know what they're doing. So just be aware of that. Like, work with me, not humans. Don't work with the humans, work with me. And so we practiced for the singing stuff, and then had the church event, service, whatever you call it. And I'm up on stage and I'm singing, and there's these sweet little gay boys all in the crowd, like on the floor below the stage. singing and dancing along, swaying to the Jesus, I love Jesus, all, the songs, whatever. And Jesus, and I was so happy. I was like, oh, look at the sweet gay kids. They're not being crucified for being who they are. How glorious. Because I bet it's hard enough being who they are. Like, leave them alone. I was so relieved. And then Jesus was like, no, stay for the service. So I go sit down after I sing, and I sit with the service. The pastor comes out and immediately starts bashing the gays and talking about politics and abortions. And I mean, these people weren't even like hard and decaying in the ground yet. The event had just happened. So it was a huge, big learning lesson of just the temple is within. Jesus has said that repeatedly. You don't have to go anywhere to talk to God. God is everywhere. God is within you. God is all around you. You don't have to go anywhere. Hold on a second. Can I help you? Okay. You don't have to go anywhere to talk to God. He's around you, with you always. You don't need to go to a church. Be very particular when you do, because again, limited amount of time here. And if they're programming you ineffectively, I don't know what to tell you. So that's some of the story. I'm trying to think of, my mom. Okay, I got to tell this one story. And then I'm going to take some live questions. A couple of years ago, Jesus gave me an activation to activate the Christ consciousness and to install him as a firewall. So this is something that I did with myself. I remember I was sitting in the bathtub one day, and I was contemplating that same church. I was like, do I need to get baptized? Like, I know my crown got done in Catholicism when I was itty bitty. Do I need to be the whole dipping in front of someone by a priest? And Jesus was like, oh my God, no. Let's do it in the bathtub. And so we did in the bathtub. I sat in the bathtub and I asked Jesus, I said, what did it look like when you got baptized? What did it mean? Da, 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 da. And then he walked me through it. And I'm going to post this video because I know some people were asking about the soul bath and the activation. So I dipped my head back and he said, when you break through the water, say, I forgive you. And I did. And I broke through the water and I said, I forgive you. And you open your eyes as you break through the water. And that's supposed to symbolize what you're truly not seeing versus what's truly there. Believing our false eyes. So I break through the water and I didn't see anything. And I told him, I said, I didn't see anything. And he goes, because you're asking the wrong person. This was my cousin's thing. This is John, the Baptist thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So then he's like, you want me to introduce you to John? I was like, of course. So John comes to the bathtub and he's got his head on a platter. And I'm like, oh, I know who you are. That's how I know you. So then he put his head back on and walked me through the whole thing. And he was showing me that you should be able to see your whole cosmic evolution from the speck of dust all the way to now while you're breaking through the water and saying, I forgive myself for believing the programming. I forgive myself for being detached from God or believing that I am detached from God. So when you're breaking through the water, you're forgiving yourself, you're forgiving the programming, and then you're forgiving God, source also, which you're part of. So you're reconnecting with your divinity self and then also forgiving yourself forever, believing you were disconnected. And so I broke through the water and I did that and I saw the vision. Felt it all. I was very, very thankful. So I got out of the bathtub and I was sitting on my bed and Jesus goes, I can help cut out all the shenanigans because as a medium, my whole life I've had ghosts coming to me in my dreams and I get to feel them around me. I had entities trespassing against me. I could feel things around me. Being raised Catholic, totally believe in demons, and whatever you believe in will manifest. So don't believe in demons. I'll do a live stream on that too of how to banish any dark stuff too, because you have divinity over all of that. The Bible says that, Jesus says that. You can cast out anything by just saying it out loud. They have no rights. They have no rights. You have all the rights. You have all the rights and all the free will. So, oh my God, where was I going with that? Brain fart. What was I saying? Do you remember, Jeff? Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm sitting on my bed. Thank you, darling. So I'm sitting on my bed and he goes, would you like to install me as your firewall? And I was like, oh my God, yes. And he was like, I'll be your bouncer. I will keep you safe. He was showing me a long hallway and everything blocked out. And then he's the bouncer in that hallway. And anyone who comes to him to talk to me will have to be with him. So now whenever I see him and he's brought someone to me, that's the only time I work with entities, spirits, or anything else other than him, because they will take you on wild goose chases. However they're programmed, if they are lost themselves, they're not going to know how to get the help from you. So you're going to go on a wild goose chase trying to figure it out. So you want to make sure Jesus is there first so you know how to help the thing that's coming to you. So, and then once I did that, it streamlined everything. My connection with him was clearer. I trusted him. And then whenever he would bring people with him, like Bowie, Freddie Mercury. He brings a lot of artists, because I'm an artist, as guides, as encouragement, as muses. And then he'll bring, like when Luke Perry showed up, that was hysterical, because I had dealt with Prince before I did the Firewall thing. And I remember when Prince showed up right after he died, I was on the porch with Jesus and Prince energy showed up, and I was like, oh my God, Prince is here? And Jesus looked at Prince and said, be cool, she just got here. And I took that as, she has just had an awakening, please be cool, because you know what was going on with Prince and what's still going on with Prince. So that was super crazy. So I put him as my firewall, and then, that was a wild goose chase trying to help Prince figure out his empire and his will and get in touch with people. And I need to focus on what I'm doing in this lifetime for Jesus, for God, writing the musical, doing, whatever I'm supposed to be doing, that I know I'm supposed to be doing already, that I'm doing. So when Luke Perry showed up, he was with Jesus, and that's how I knew to help him. Because I was in the bathroom and Luke Perry had passed, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. He was so young, and he seemed like a really nice guy from things that I had heard, things that I had read, cast members and stuff like that, which is so funny because he played such a asshole bad boy on TV and apparently was not like that at all. So when he showed up in my bathroom, I was brushing my teeth and I could feel him over to the left of me and a little behind me. And he was under the impression that I was a psychic and could see him, or medium, or whatever you want to call it. And I was ignoring him because I didn't know how to help him. I don't know any of his relatives. this is what I experienced with Prince. He wanted me to reach out to everyone. I'm like, Prince, I don't know any of your people. I'm so sorry. I wish I could help everybody. So then, so I'm brushing my teeth, and Luke Perry goes like this. He goes, why are you pretending like you can't see me? And I'm brushing my teeth. I go, what makes you think I can see you? And then I'm thinking out loud, the fact that I just said that out loud is validation that I can see you. And then he points to Jesus, and I look at Jesus, and he's like, yeah, help him. And I was like, oh, all right. So I helped him however I could, trying to remember the whole conversation that he had. But he asked me to reach out to his daughter. He said that she would be the most open to receiving a message. And I reached out to her. I don't know if she's gotten the message or not. I told Luke, I said, I've done my part. If she ever sees the message, that's got to be on you. I honestly don't know how to do anything else to get this across. But one of the stories my mom wanted me to tell, and that's what I meant to tell real quick, because I know we're getting to the end of the hour and I want to answer your questions. So we'll go a few minutes longer. When I was doing the activations thing, I held a class and an activation that sold out in 24 hours. And that really freaked me out, because at that same time, all I could hear from the spiritual community and from stone throwers was, you shouldn't be charging, you shouldn't be charging, you shouldn't be charging. But then I don't know how I'm supposed to pay my bills or eat or take care of my family or live. If I'm devoting my life to God and doing all this work, and then I don't have any time for a real job that pays 3D money, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So I need a very, very good amount of money in 24 hours, and it very much triggered me. And Jesus was, no, don't be triggered. This is empowering. You should be able to take care of yourself and provide for yourself. And the thing that Jesus wants us to know as mystics or spiritual people that are helping other people, he wants us to teach people to fish. So don't just facilitate the healing. Explain what you're doing also, so that they don't need you or rely on you. You are just the catalyst for what they can already do themselves, because we all can do these things. And that is the problem that he had with the priests and stuff back in his day, why he was so angry, is they weren't teaching anything, and they truly were not really healing all that much either, because they really didn't know how. Some of them might have been, but again, they weren't teaching anyone, and they were claiming that only they could do this, which is false. And it keeps people from being empowered. So I remember being really triggered by that, and I had my live call the next day with a group of like 30 people that we were going to do some religious deprogramming, and then do the soul bath, which was a meditation that Jesus guided me through to write down and record, and then go through the Firewall activation. And I did all that, and I really, really loved it, and I freaked out. I told Jesus, I'm not ready to just do this full time just quite yet. So he starts making picket signs, and he's marching around my room saying, we're on strike, we're not working for God just yet. And I was like, you're adorable. So I want to say like a week later, I was like, oh my God, I've got to make more of an income than I'm making. I was relying solely on just my husband's income, and it was very straining for him to have to work all the time when we would both be bringing in, a decent amount of money. So I felt really, really worried, angry, sad, all these low vibrational things about it. And I remember remember one day I was in the car and I was driving, and Jesus popped up, and I was having a panic attack and I was just crying, and Jesus popped up and he was like, you need to relax, you need to calm, and you need to trust, and you need to have faith. And he put the mustard seed in my face. He said, you've got to have the faith of a mustard seed. The mustard seed just means have the tiniest window of faith so that the Holy Spirit can even access you, because if you have zero faith, you are blocking yourself off, and you have free will to do so. You are allowed to. So it's up to you. Again, all about empowering ourselves, of knowing the rules of the game here. You have to ask for his help. You have to initiate conversations, and you have to have a faith of a mustard seed to get the ball going. So I remember he said in the car, he said, let the bills pile up. Don't worry. Stay away from worry. Stay away from it. Keep your vibration high. And literally the next day I was offered a muggle job in the telecommunications industry. And I say muggle because it's a 3D job. In the telecommunications industry, paying a good amount of money for a good family friend of ours that had been in the business. She's been in the business like 20 years and best friends with my mom. And, it was a godsend to be able to get that income and just keep working with him while bringing in an income and transition a little bit slowly into, going full woo. But I remember I was on the phone one day and I was having a panic attack in my new job because I didn't really know Excel very well. And we would get all of these Excel sheets that I had to sort, huge amounts of information. I remember calling my mom and she was like, well, why don't you ask Jesus? And I got off the phone with her and Jesus showed me how to sort on Excel. And I looked at Jesus and I go, you know Excel? He goes, I know everything. And he did. I mean, he knows Excel. He knows everything. So he told me he's the poor man's guide. He's the poor man's coach. He requires nothing but your attention. My God, he's so wonderful. He's so loving. I am moved to tears most of the time he's around. He's just the most glorious energy and the most wonderful human being that ever existed. He is the pinnacle of what we're trying to achieve within ourselves. And he even says we could be better because he lost his cool in the temple. But I get it. It's easy to lose your cool here. Anyway, I'm going to stop because I could literally talk for hours. And I'm going to answer some of the live questions. I haven't been able to see any of the questions because I just turned it on to just focus on the story and answering the questions. So Jeff's going to hand me some questions. Which one?
How do you know your mission?
Okay, how do you know what your mission is when you don't have any real desire? Like no real goals or burning wants, etc. Well, you would have to dive into what you're naturally attracted to, and that is how you'll unlock what your mission would be. So I unlocked, and the chain of events that took place in order for me to kind of figure out that I was meant to write a musical was a learning experience with Jesus to get to that. Jesus didn't just show up and be like, hey, we're writing a musical, although he did come to my mom and apparently say that a couple years ago. I'll tell you that in just a second. So when Jesus first showed up, he lit up my passion. He lit up my passion. All I wanted to do was be around him and talk to him and immerse myself with him and teach anyone I could, talk about it 24/7. It became my passion because it just lit me up. It lit me on fire, knowing truth, and then helping to heal others. So as someone who experienced PTSD, one of my passions is to help other people escape it, heal it, speak about it. I'll be there to hear about it. You can tell me all the horrible things that happened. I won't judge. I won't do anything except be there so that you can dump all that out, because we don't get to talk about it much. Most people cannot stand to hear what we've gone through. And part of the healing process is you got to talk about it. So a lot of things that you've survived in your past, overcome, accomplished, achieved, those are huge indicators of what is part of your mission going forward, of what you should be teaching others how to overcome, accomplish, and achieve. And that will bring in so much of your passion because you'll be helping people who are receptive and needing you and respectful of your time and energy, and also thankful for your light in their tunnel, okay? Because if you've achieved something and someone else hasn't, they're still in that tunnel waiting for a light. And you could be that light. So it's a huge indicator right there. So when Jesus was showing up for me, I was like, oh my God, I want to write a book about this. I want to write a book about our relationship. And I manifested a friend who was helping me to write the book. But then it was so boring. I hated writing a book. I had a lot of triggers with writing. I felt that when I wrote things in previous lives, they got me killed. Or when I talked about this stuff in previous lives, they got me killed. So I had a lot of triggering around that. And then one day Jesus said, let's not write a book. What would be way more fun? And again, he pretends like he's letting you figure it out for yourself when he already knows. And it turned into a musical. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, hell yes. I'm a musical theater nut, musical theater background. I've been singing Jesus Freak, not Jesus Freak, that's my musical, Jesus Christ Superstar since 3rd grade, when I absolutely just fell madly in love with it. And going back, you'll be able to piece together things of your passions from your youth into your passions of your mission. So this directly linked to me because the only reason I had any window of wanting anything to do with Jesus was because of Andrew Lloyd Webber, Jesus Christ Superstar. I was able to see a version of Jesus that I completely agreed was plausible and existed, and I liked him, and I liked the relationship with Mary. Oh, I know one of the questions my friend asked was, did they end up in Turkey? So I have been shown that he came back for her as part of the mission. The whole thing was to fulfill a prophecy, blow minds, and make sure that this was all recorded as a huge, huge event. But the selfish part of it was Jesus found his one true love, and he wasn't about to just leave her. So he came back for her, and my God, the vision of when she sees him for the first time just brings me to my knees in tears. It is the most beautiful thing because even she was blown away that he truly did come back for her. And then he tells me, and I don't know if this is true, but it's delightful, and I'm going to write it into a movie one way or another, that they went off and they went to Turkey. They went all different places because they were obviously undercover. They had to hide a lot, so they would travel a lot in France and all sorts of places. But Jesus told me that to make money, they had a fake vineyard. Since Jesus knew how to turn water into wine, that's how they made their money. I just think that's wonderful. That settles well with me, that Jesus didn't die, sacrifice, and have no joy while he was on earth, and didn't get to spend any time with a woman who obviously was madly freaking in love with him and got him as an equal, and vice versa. And an equal in the sense that she was so hyper-focused on him and learning and passionate about all of his teachings, and then was fully on anointing him, taking care of him, and keeping after him of his well-being. And then the fact that she's front and center at the crucifixion, when the laws at that time, unless you were a wife, you weren't allowed to be up there. So, look at all that stuff. Use your logic, use discernment. What other questions do we have, honey? Why is your past allowed to affect your present and future? Why is your past allowed to affect your present and future? Your past would affect your present and future because you've got to heal it. You've got to heal it, and then you show other people how to heal it. And that's why it's still affecting you. You've got to reprogram your brain to stop thinking about the trauma and to learn how to erase it, override it. And that's a course. So Jesus was able to heal that into me. Reset all of that PTSD, and I've turned it into a course that I'm in the middle of shooting videos and breaking it down into a quantum 6-week program, because people with PTSD, we don't want this anymore. 6 weeks is the longest I even want to deal with it anymore. So the program's a quantum program. It's not years of therapy. It's not years of running in circles with no conclusion, and it's taught by someone who's experienced PTSD and has overcome this particular, childhood issue. So the things that are coming up from your past, they're meant for you to heal right now, figure out how to heal them, and then use them again to show the light to others. And that directly correlates with your mission and your purpose. I remember one time I was in a meditation and I popped up and saw my dad again. I was in a deep, deep meditation, and I popped up onto a ship, and it was some sort of ship, and I was walking down the hallway, and all of these officers, galactic whatever, I didn't really get to see a lot of faces. I was just shuffled down a hallway, and they handed me papers. They said, she's awake, give her papers. And they said, these are your mission papers. And they gave me my mission papers. And then my dad ran out. This is how I know the ship he's on, or wherever he's doing, whatever he's doing. And he running behind me, he goes, how are you here? And this is the second time he said this. How are you here? I don't know. And then they shoved me out a door, and I free fell back to earth, and they yelled, you have a parachute, just so you know, meaning you have help. You're not in this alone. Don't freak out. And that's when I knew that I was going to start unraveling my mission very profoundly. So the first step, you've got to do the work to heal yourself. You've just got to find some spiritual groups, try to understand the ascension process and raising your vibration. And the reason we're raising our vibration, we've got to raise it to the unconditional love vibration, right? Which is a super duper high vibrational frequency. That is the Christ consciousness. So the closer we can get to that radiating that vibrational frequency, the faster you can manifest and help people and do your mission work and get involved in that. So again, the responsibility lies back on us. It's all about empowering ourselves. God's not going to do this for us. Jesus is not going to do this for us. If any of your guides say they're going to do it for you, you need to flip the dial because they're lying to your ass. No one can do this except for us. We have to do this ourselves. I mean, there's a meme going around that says, we're the people that we were waiting for. And it's true. God allows suffering again because we have free will so that we can choose to stop suffering. I was told, suicides, they agree to commit suicide and actually have the suicide complete so that they can bring attention to the need of attention to suicides. They need to bring love to it. So when someone commits suicide or a tragedy happens, what immediately happens? What happens? The community gets together and throws love into that, right? Because they want to try to understand it. They want to try to heal it. They want to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. That's what we need to keep doing. And that's why those things keep erupting so that we can keep working on them and solving it. Because once we solve everything through the lens of love, everything will be fixed and healed. And Jesus wants everyone to know all of these things will be resolved as soon as we decide to do it. So it's not so much a time frame that we can put into it because time is irrelevant. It's whenever we decide to do all of the things. But know that there's hope. All of these things are coming to a head right now. I know it looks really, really scary, but it's for us to throw as much love at it as possible. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And that's going to help you figure out exactly what your mission is, how to heal your own self, how to heal your past, and how to use your past to use it, in your future and your prosperity. And all the things that you went through, you should be able to, if you devote yourself to, wanting to heal others through what you've experienced, you should be able to take care of yourself financially too. God will prosper you through what you went through. And all of this is written in the Bible that triggers the hell out of people, including myself. There are some nuggets in there that are just so good and so important to know. What else? Let's see. What is the real meaning of 666? Well, there's a couple of meanings around that. It means any triple, double, quadruple numbers means bring your focus to it right now. 666, the mark of the beast, from what I have come to the conclusion of with discussing it with Jesus, is consumerism, materialism over humanness. So materialism and corporate need, desire. So those things have a bigger presence or laws protecting them or rights versus actual human beings' rights or ethical or moralities. So the mark of the 666, it is a huge transformation towards alignment, because when you see it, it's reminding you that it's there. I mean, it depends on what's going on in your day when you see it. When I'm going on in my day and I see it, it's usually I'm worried about money. I'm worried about the material part. I'm worried about that. And they're saying, don't, because that's how you manifest more worry, right? When you worry about something, you manifest that. So you've got to flip it. So for the 666, for me, it is, it's all of those triple numbers are a side of radical transformation. But yeah, we should be able to flip the 666 from being a negative thing into an empowering thing of flipping that energy from be careful of materialism to, hyper awareness of humanness and oneness. Is that it, baby? Oh, where are we going? Where are we going to lunch? Who's asking that? Was that it? Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go off now. And thank you all for being here with me. This was a lot of fun. I had panic attacks all morning and all night long just thinking about doing this. But thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And I'll probably do another one of these channelings again, because I feel like I didn't get to channel him live so much, because this is all stuff that he and I have talked about at such length, or the past 3 days I've been hearing him nonstop answer all these questions.
One more question.
Oh, one more question?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
When people are seeing demons, what are they really seeing?
When people are seeing demons, what they're really seeing are manifestations of their fears. So you have a powerful, powerful, powerful mind, and whatever you believe, you can manifest. And so this is something I talk about when I'm trying to figure out stuff on the other side. And something I'm shown is we can create dimensions through our existence here. That's how powerful we are. And then we can go to those dimensions when we die if we want to cross over. That's why Jesus has his own kingdom and was awarded that by knowing that people would follow him into his realm. He's got a little piece of heaven that is just for some of the lost Christians are hanging out there. He shows me he runs a cul-de-sac also, because he's more of a facilitator than he is a hangout area in a realm. You know, we've got more work to do once we leave here. We're going through all of this learning here so that we're of more importance when we cross over, right? So what was the question again? I want to make sure I'm answering the right thing.
What are they saying?
Say it again.
When they say demons, what are they?
Oh, okay. So when you see demons, those are manifestations of your fears, and they are violators from other dimensions that trespass. They don't care about the free will, and they feed on your lower vibrations. So you're feeding them. When you start to feel them around, you can feel them scurry about. Because I used to get these too. I used to know their presence. And the main reason I know that I manifested them myself was Catholicism. You know, they talk about demons all the time. Otherwise, how the hell would you know what a demon is unless the Catholics are telling you all about it? And you only are aware of things. I mean, ignorance is kind of bliss. You're only aware of things if they're brought to your attention, right? So if you are under the impression that demons can come and trespass against you, well, then you're letting them. You're telling them that's okay. And they're not allowed to. They're coming over from other dimensions based on your low vibrational frequencies. So fear, worry, all of those low vibrational things, they come in and play shenanigans. So they'll come in and they will puff themselves up like they have way more power and energy because they know they can only use fear tactics to get to you. Lies and fear tactics. So you've got to take all their power away. And I have done a demon transmutation. I learned this a couple years ago, and it works, and it's phenomenal. It's the coolest thing ever. So I'll end on this. So what you do, from what I read, and I'll try to find the article and post it again. It was some obscure site. So what you do is, if you feel there is a demonic presence around, a demonic entity around, you tell it that you are the sovereign being with full access to free will and rights in this realm, and that he is the trespasser, and that he has to leave and vanquish himself through the light. So he has to go through the light and either go back to source or transmute himself into something. And if he won't do it himself, I will do it for him. They will not ever do it themselves. You have to assert your dominance. But I just like to be nice by offering them, you can do this yourself, or I'm doing it. So when they puff up even higher and try to get in your face and scare you, that is when you have to meditate, visualize so strong that that is all that you see is them turning into whatever they wouldn't want to be. So I turn them into butterflies. You transmutate them through light source energy, and they turn into whatever you want them to. Butterflies, ladybugs, whatever you think would piss them off to be, that is what you turn them into. And like I said, I give them the option because I got it. They're demons. They're from another dimension. I empathize with everything. That's one of my flaws. So I give them the option to, you can leave and transmute yourself, or I will do it. And like I said, they will never ever take you up on that. So you have to do it yourself. And then you will scare the shit out of any other demon. Oh, another question. All right. What I was gonna say, you will scare the shit out of any other demon that sees you do that, because again, you have the rights, and it says in the Bible by Jesus, we have the right to squash any serpents. Serpents meaning lower vibrational things. Don't go killing all the snakes. Snakes are good. All right, what's the next question?
Was there another? Is God the only one that created this world? Hold on, let me find it. Keep going.
Oh, is God the only one? Okay. This is a big question that I end up going on to a reset or reboot when I venture too far out into a meditation to try to get answers on this. The God that we are all collectively disagreeing that we all pray to, the same God, it is all the same God. We're just on different pages. If you were to deconstruct every single religion and get down to the basics, the fundamentals are morality and ethicalness, right? That is the foundation of every religion, and they built all these walls sprouting up to divide us all and to pick and choose religions. But at the end of the day, we are all praying to the same God that has created everything in our universe. The multiverses, I don't know about that. When I've asked further back, my mind resets and I get a nothing. And I don't know if it means there is nothing and it's only God that has created everything, and what is behind God. I don't know. I get a do not enter, like, we're not going there. Just a nothingness is happening. So either that's the answer, is that there's nothing else besides God and God is everything, and we are just, building, and they say the universe is growing and constantly growing, and that coordinates with my understanding from working with God and Jesus, that every time we incarnate here, we are building the universe bigger and bigger with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with our manifestations of what the universe is, that it is growing because of our incarnations, our beliefs. We're making it bigger and bigger. What's beyond that? I have not been able to find out. I don't know if I'm not supposed to know, if there is no, or if it's irrelevant to me knowing at this time. Whatever it is, I don't care, because whenever I venture there, I literally, my mind, boom, resets, and where am I? So I just know not to venture past there. Just stick with all the stuff I'm trying to learn, because there's still plenty for me to figure out beyond knowing how to figure that one out just yet. But if you figure it out, let me know. But that's all I've got. So any other questions? All right. Thank you so much. Again, if you need to work with me one-on-one, please reach out to me. Like I said, I'm a PTSD trauma coach. I can help you with that. I'm going to be releasing my course as soon as it's done, the pre-sale, I'll show it out. If you need help with religious deprogramming, if you need more help with figuring out how to connect deeper with Jesus through more than what I've given today, reach out to me. I do have to charge you. I tried giving it all away for free years ago, and Jesus schooled me repeatedly that people do not, for the most part, some people do. A lot of my beautiful friends took the free gifts and knew their value. But a lot of people, they only place value if it has a true price tag on it. And if you say something's free, they will think it has zero value. So there has to be an exchange of energy. Oh, and Jesus was even telling me, when you work with ghosts, there has to be an exchange of energy. They cannot just come and drain you asking for help all the time. You must tell them they need to do some shit for you. And I had that happen because I had a ton of ghosts coming and asking me for my help while I was also trying to work my muggle job. And I remember Jesus telling me, you need to tell them to do some stuff for you first so that you can get your work done and not be overwhelmed when it comes to helping them. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. So I started delegating to the spirits, telling them, listen, I'm happy to help you, tune in, answer questions, identify wherever you are and help you however I can. But I need this, and this to happen. I need contracts to come in. I need my boss needs this and that. My other bosses needs this and that. I need these things to happen for my work, and I need my husband's checks to come in now. And that day, all those things happened. And then I was able to take time off and help them a little bit more. So you need to have a exchange of energy for everything. We are not sacrifices. Jesus sacrificed himself with no exchange. That was his personal contribution to our human existence. It's not my contribution. It's not anyone else's contribution. I am not competing with Jesus on martyrness, okay? No one else should be either. Charge whatever you're worth. People will pay for whatever they need. And, I'm happy to do a scholarship if you're truly going to do the work and you cannot afford it. But I have done that before too, and they never open the present. And that's just a waste of time for everybody. But anyway, again, thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun. I've truly, truly, truly enjoyed this. I just love it. God bless you. And again, I'll probably do another live channeling Jesus and answering some more questions and telling some more, funny stories very, very soon, because I freaking love this guy. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.